Call the meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is the minutes from May 20th. Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve, subject to modification.
Page 1. Page 2.
This is the smallest nitpickiest thing, but on number 6, the sentence, the number of airlines, destinations, and passengers have, it should be increased instead of increase.
Yep.
I was a little confused on 7. Wasn't very clear, but I think, Mr. Boulanger said that the PC reviewed this document. So I thought if we just change the title to the town's response to the CCRPC housing targets, that might clarify the whole rest of that paragraph.
Anything else on page 2? Page 3.
I don't think this is really a correction, but since we're talking about this under number 9, I think, Eric, you volunteered to, it says other alerts are subscription-based, and you had volunteered to kind of, over time, advertise that more so people would pick it up. I don't think it's necessarily a change to the minutes, but I just saw it and wanted to remind you.
Subject to those modifications, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
There are no nays. The ayes have it.
Did anyone second Greta's motion to approve the minutes?
Oh,
I'll second.
Now they are official.
okay, right. Thank you. All right, next on the agenda, public comment. This would be a moment for anybody on the watching over the internet or in the room to make a comment about anything they wish. It can be on the agenda or not on the agenda. Just so we'll open the floor up to anybody who wants to make a public comment. No? Okay. Anybody online?
Only staff.
Only staff. Okay. Okay. Next, the establishment of Juneteenth as a town holiday. Eric, can you introduce us?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got a memo in the board's packet. The board's asked to consider establishing Juneteenth, which is June 19th, as a town holiday. The action would be to amend the town's personnel policy. This would be a day when the town's administrative offices are closed in recognition of the historic events of that day. And in the board's memo, I've outlined from the National Museum of African American History and Culture some history of Juneteenth. I'll read a short excerpt for the meeting here. After the Emancipation Proclamation was approved by President Lincoln January 1st, 1863, not everyone in the Confederate territory would immediately be free. Even though it was made effective in 1863, it could not be implemented in places still under Confederate control. As a result, in the westernmost Confederate state of Texas, enslaved people would not be free until much later. Freedom finally came on June 19, 1865, when 2,000 Union troops arrived in Galveston Bay, Texas. The Army announced that more than 250,000 enslaved black people in the state were free by executive decree. This day came to be known as Juneteenth by the newly freed people in Texas. The state of Vermont designated Juneteenth as a legal holiday last year in 2024, and several other nearby municipalities have established it as a holiday as well. Those include Essex Town, Essex Junction, and Winooski. Several communities hold events around Juneteenth as well, and this is something Williston could consider in the future moving forward. To the board's discussion.
Comments from the board?
I think I'm glad that we're doing this, and I think it's more important than ever that we recognize that the fight for equity is ongoing, and that this is one step our town can do to publicly acknowledge that we are in support of that.
Any other questions, comments, discussion? Okay, then a motion would be in order.
I'll move to amend the personnel policy to establish Juneteenth as a town holiday effective June 19th, 2025.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. There are no nays. The motion carries. Next, Stormwater Fund operating and capital budgets.
Lisa's here, our stormwater coordinator, and I can kick things off as the board reviews its 3 enterprise fund budgets this evening. We've done this the last several years in the spring instead of the winter to break up some of the budget work. And the select board serves as the commissioners of our 3 enterprise funds, water, sewer, and stormwater. Each year you must approve these budgets in order to set utility rates for the new fiscal year. As we go through the budget, the proposed rates are part of these proposed budgets. On your agenda on June 17th will be to formally adopt all the rates and fees for the next fiscal year. So essentially by adopting these budgets this evening, there should be consensus on the rates that are associated with them as well to then formally adopt at the next meeting. And you'll hear this evening, there's no significant rate increases suggested. There's some on CPI and a little bit in the water fund, and we'll have our town staff walk through that. We did have discussion last meeting with our auditor about net position or fund balance best practices. I connected with them last week. They were pulling some information, but I haven't got that from them yet, so I can certainly follow up with the board once I have that information from the auditor as well. And we have stormwater up first, and toss it to Lisa, and Bruce is here as well.
Yeah, it's good to see you all again. So to start, we're not proposing any rate changes for the stormwater utility. So I'll just go through and review some of the significant line item changes. And just so you know, I'll be referring to the page number as the one on the page. So if you're looking at the PDF, it's not the one on the top, but the one in the bottom corner. Okay, so since we're not proposing any change to the utility rate, the first change that I'll note is on the bottom of page 5. For consulting services, we're proposing an increase from $16,930 to $63,930. And that includes the following changes: a small increase in the Blue program budget from $10,000 to $12,000. And that is so we can give larger rebates to the homeowners who are supported by that program with UVM. And the next change is we just moved the Rethink Runoff and Stream Team budget from state fees to consulting. So I think that just better reflects how we're using that money, but that's part of our MS4 permit compliance. And then we added, we're proposing to add $40,000 here to reassess our equivalent residential unit, which is what our stormwater fees are based on. It represents the median square footage for a single-family parcel with a house and driveway. And as stated in the stormwater ordinance, the town is supposed to periodically reassess the equivalent residential unit, which we haven't done since the utility was founded, so in about 10 years. So this number is just based on a rough quote we got from the folks who previously did the ERU assessment, but since it's been about 10 years, we're due to reassess that. And that is, again, the basis of all of our stormwater utility billing, so it has a lot of impacts.
Can I just give me a few more sentences on what exactly you're reassessing?
Yeah, so since there's been a lot of development in the last 10 years, there's a good chance that the median size of a single-family parcel has changed. Mm-hmm. So it looks at the impervious surface, which includes the driveway and basically roofs and patios. So if the median size has gone down, then we could be billing for more impervious surface than we are right now. So it wouldn't affect many single-family homeowners because they're just charged one ERU. But for commercial properties, they're charged based on the actual square footage and a formula based on the ERU. So if they have a large square footage of impervious surface and we establish a smaller ERU, then they could be billed more.
Okay, that makes more sense. I was thinking single-family homes going 40.
Yeah, they'll all be the same, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the next change is at the bottom of page 7. For maintenance project wages, we proposed an increase from $51,570 to $66,000, and that's just based on our projected spending for fiscal year '25. Some of this increase is due to the fact that the highway department is now doing our 5 annual street sweepings, so that's about $6,000 of that budget. And just to refresh everybody's memory, we purchased a street sweeper last year and started doing our own street sweeping because the cost to contract that out had increased so much. Previously, if we were still contracting out, we'd be paying $11,550 per sweeping, and now we're paying for labor about $6,000 in total. So that comes out to the street sweeper should pay for itself in about 2.5 to 3 years, and should last at least 7. So, any other questions on that one? Okay. On to page 8. The first change on page, or significant change on page 8 is the stormwater maintenance budget, which is decreasing from 65,550 to 54,000. And that is just because we've removed contracted street sweeping from this one. We had one extra one included in there for last fiscal year in case the street sweeper purchase took a while, but we were able to get a used street sweeper right away. So we didn't have to use that. So now that budget, the stormwater maintenance budget, no longer includes any street sweeping money. Right below that on page 8 is the culvert budget, which has a significant proposed increase from 50,000 to 80,000. And this is mainly to prepare for the results of a stormwater pipe study we have going on right now. They started doing CCTV camera recordings of our stormwater pipes so that, and this is a grant project with CCRPC. The goal is to get a prioritized report of areas that need maintenance or replacements. So in preparation for that, we want to be able to address any urgent concerns that might arise from that study.
This might be a Shirley question, but like, I don't see that grant listed in 24 or 25 or 26, so I don't know, when do we count, when do we put grants on the sheet and when do we not?
We haven't billed anything to it yet, so that might be why. Yeah.
Wouldn't it be budgeted then?
We don't usually budget grants.
Well, there's a line, that's all, there's a grant revenue line, so I didn't know when you use that and when you don't, I guess is my question.
I don't think you care. So only when we have actuals. We don't usually budget, but we will show the actuals in there for both revenue and expenses.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so then right below the culverts budget is the project equipment use budget, which has a proposed increase from 40,370 to 68,000, and that again is based on our spending so far and our projected spending for fiscal year 25. Then at the bottom of page 8, we have the equipment maintenance budget, which is a new budget since we purchased the sweeper, which is the first specific piece of equipment for stormwater use. So we've added that budget. And then my next points are on the stormwater or the capital budget. So if there's no more questions, I can move on to the capital funds.
Go ahead.
Okay. So for the capital sheets, we're not proposing any financial changes on the first page, but I wanted to point out that we're kind of anticipating that the use of those funds might evolve as new state guidelines come out. Previously, this fund has been used for the Allenbrook Flow Restoration Plan and the Phosphorus Control Plan, so that's for flow reductions and phosphorus reductions. But we also have a chloride impaired stream, and regulations for that are being rolled out by the state right now. So this fund, I think, big picture, could be used for whatever state regulation we're working on at the time. So in future years, that might include chloride. The most notable change for the capital funds is on page 3. We are proposing to purchase a small electric vehicle for the stormwater program. So for this year, we would contribute $20,700 to that capital fund so that we can use the fund balance to purchase an EV this year and then start saving for a replacement in 7 years. So we're, based on numbers we've seen in the state contracts, we should be able to get a small EV like a Nissan Leaf or a Bolt for less than $40,000. So yeah, we're not proposing any other changes in the capital funds, but overall that leaves us at a net expense for fiscal year 26 of $15,165. So we plan to use the stormwater fund balance to balance that budget. And part of the reason for that is that some of these expenses, like the ERU reassessment, aren't things that need to happen every single year. So we don't feel the need to change the utility rate to cover something that's not going to necessarily be an ongoing expense.
So this was great. It was it's a really fiscally responsible budget. You thought about a lot of stuff, not just like how many pencils you're gonna need. I was stumbling over the fund balance, and Shirley was explaining to me that this function does not have a capital account. Is that the right way to say it, Shirley?
A separate capital
Right.
fund, yep.
So, what the other ones do. So in this situation where there's a $1.9 million fund balance, 1.1 of it is, it's not restricted, it's assigned, I think. It's assigned to be the term. There are specific programs that it's already earmarked for, which makes me a lot more comfortable, but it does kind of, I wonder why we would treat this any different, and maybe we should give some thought to just having a capital fund for this if we're restricting, or if we're.
We will do that, Jean.
Yeah? Good, because I don't have to ask you the question next year when I forgot the answer. So that would just take it down to, basically $700,000 fund balance, which is an entire year's reserve. And I just have to, think about, in these accounts, the reserve is more about the infrastructure we're responsible for than it is about the operating costs. The general fund, if you have a recession and you get no 1% sales tax, you have to make it up with a fund balance. In this situation, people are still gonna pay their water bill, but you may have infrastructure problems you have to fix that you weren't planning on. So I still think probably a whole year is more than the auditors are gonna say we need, but it's a lot better than the 1.9 million, so. So I don't have any questions. I think this is it's a good, solid budget, and it's responsible to taxpayers and responsible to forward-looking projects.
Thank you.
Other questions? If not, there is a proposed motion.
I move to approve the Stormwater Fund operating budget for fiscal year 2026 in the amount of $774,045, and capital program for fiscal years 2026 through 2031 as presented.
Is there a second?
Second?
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 There are no nays. The ayes have it. The motion carries.
I just want to thank Lisa. You're looking at our entire stormwater utility here right now. She does an excellent job for us. There's a lot to manage and a lot of complexities. And we're hoping at some point this summer, similar to what the board did with going to our wastewater treatment plant, we could set up a field trip before a meeting to go to a stormwater project that's ongoing. And Lisa can highlight the work that's been done there. So we can find a date this summer, hopefully, to set that up for the board.
Yeah, that'd be great.
It's the important work behind the scenes that nobody looks at or thinks about, right?
Yeah. Get a lot of questions about what stormwater is, so it's always fun to connect with people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Water fund. Next on the agenda, water fund operations and capital budgets. Good evening, Bruce.
Tough act to follow, Bruce.
Yeah, they always are. So water. Okay, in the letter of transmittal, you will see that I just explained the increase from the Champlain Water District is a 4.95% to us. And after going through our whole budget, we're suggesting a 0.86% increase in the retail cost. We have some capital sheets in here that we can talk about, and the only new capital sheet is going to be for the Oak Hill Road Pump Station. And other than that, there's not a lot of big increases in the water budget. I know, Gene, you would ask about the why, and we answered the question, but anyway, about the receipts and what we pay for water. But if you do the math, which I'm sure you probably did anyway, it's only 12%. So a water system, the state would tell you that you can't get a 10%, if you can't even get to 10% water loss. We're usually somewhere between 12 and we've gotten as high as 18%, but we're around 12% right now. And water loss is always going to happen. There's just no way to not have it happen.
I had asked why the revenue receipts used a different total amount of water than the water we bought. Which I knew there was vaguely, but there was a reason, I just couldn't remember what it was, so. 30
Yeah.
million gallons getting stolen, I want to know where it is.
Right, 30 million is a big number, there's no doubt, but when we're talking 282 million.
Yeah,
So, but just as an example of water loss, just the last 3 weeks, we were dealing with a property who had water coming in through their water line around the outside of it, through their wall, and couldn't figure it out. Well, it was figured out that we tested the water, it was chlorinated water, turned pink, so we knew it was water we were supplying. It took them about 3 weeks, well, about 2.5 weeks to fix it. And the only reason I think it finally got done is because I picked up the phone and told them, it's going to be fixed this week, or we're going to take a different action, which is shut your water off. Because we're paying for that water right now, it's not going through their meter. When they dug the line up, and this was in a business, when they dug the line up off our water main, they went out with copper, which is what they're supposed to do, but they went out 3 or 4 feet, went to plastic, up to the building, stopped again, and then went copper from there into the building. So you look at either end, you'd say it's a copper water line, which it's supposed to be, but it wasn't. And the leak was in that plastic somewhere. So that's just an example of a leak, and that could have been leaking for years. It just happened to be that it finally started going through their wall and their foundation, and they started getting concerned about it because they started getting water in the basement. So just an example of why there might be leaks, breaks, fire flows, all kinds of different things. But that's the reason why those two numbers will never be the same. And so once again, there's not a lot of major changes besides when we went through the budget asking for that 5 cent raise in the retail rate. Unless somebody has a specific question, I'm certainly willing to answer it, but I could talk about capital.
Questions?
I have a question, but it's about capital, so I'll wait.
Okay.
There's three-phase power on, what is it, or you're putting in some type of converter?
You're not letting me get to you're beating me to my, so no, Mike, there's no 3-phase power at the Oak Hill pump station right here. It's gonna be through it is a converter that will convert it to 3-phase power.
The only place with three-phase power right now in Williston is Industrial Avenue?
No, that's not true. Not that I know of. I wouldn't say that I would be surprised if that's true.
So there is more.
We have 3-phase power at Avenue.
I mean, on Industrial
It's
Avenue.
off Industrial Avenue, but I can't believe that Keurig doesn't have 3-phase power over on Marshall Ave, and, yeah, I don't think that's probably true.
Okay.
But anyway, what Mike's asking about is the Oak Hill Road Pump Station, is the new capital item that we're asking for in here, and that is to put in a system that converts the power up there to 3-phase to make the pumps run more efficiently and hopefully not have to replace the pumps as often as we have been. The other one there that has any real significant increases is the hydrant replacement from 60 to 100,000. Some of that's because that capital item's in the hole a little anyway, so it's still going to be really only about a $20,000 increase, but that's to keep having our hydrants changed out that we've been doing. And the other significant one there for $2,100 is the vehicle replacement fund, which we're finding things are getting a lot more expensive. I mean, a lot more expensive. or going back to highway, the last truck we just put out, we were paying about $160,000 a year, now we're at $190,000. So,
Well, that was actually gonna be my question, and I was going the other way, which is, I think if these are the trucks, or the trucks that, or the vehicles that we might be we would, by the time we're buying these, they're likely to be electric. I don't know that we're saving enough money for that, so.
water and sewer does not want to have electric vehicles. If we're going to go electric, we do it with highway pickup trucks. Water and sewer could be out there in the middle of the night, on a December night in a freezing cold, and the way they get warm is to go get in a truck that's reliable and will keep the heat going. We went to a demonstration for the F-150 just last week, and Shelburne has one, or a couple, and this was with the UVM Hort Farm. The one they had there, during the wintertime, the guy couldn't even drive to Randolph and back using the heat. He had to turn the heat off to be able to come back from Randolph. So they're just not going to be reliable for a water and sewer type of work. But for highway, which you wouldn't think maybe, but for highway, the highway pickups don't plow. They're used during the day to run the guys around and do those kind of things. Makes much more sense for us to go to electric vehicles, and we will look at electric vehicles. I was actually surprised they said they got that F-150 down to about $35,000 with a bunch of incentives that came back. So we will certainly, but they didn't get it through the state contract. They bought it through a fleet service. So we're certainly going to keep looking at that.
We're currently working on our capital planning for fleet replacement for EVs as part of our UPWP project. And one of the pieces as we're going through the inventory is pickups that may need plow capability. And as I recall, Bruce, we use some of these for pumps, potentially plowing out at pump stations.
Oh, yeah,
Some
no,
of these
no,
pickups.
water and sewer will always have at least one, because they do, they actually have a pickup that they plow with for the pump stations.
And part of what the consultants were telling us recently is if you have a pickup that needs to be used for plowing, they don't have an EV rated one as of today that could handle that demand for it.
No, they do
So
not.
I think over the life of this capital plan, we'll certainly see continued advances in technology. And, we'll keep an eye on it year to year and think, is there a trajectory here as we move out this capital plan year to year, and what we need to save for that moving forward.
But the prices are coming down is what I was trying to get at, because when we first looked at the F-150, we were talking $70,000, $80,000. But now, I was surprised when that's what they said down there, that they got that one down to 35 with the incentives. So that's getting down into the realm of where we're buying trucks for now anyway. It's just a matter of having a place to charge them, but we're gonna be taking care of that too, hopefully this summer. Might be our best customer.
All right, well, the only other question I had was I'm looking that this department has quite a healthy fund balance as well, and so I was looking at the meter reading system, which I know was on the ARPA list that I don't think we were able to fund, so, but I was wondering, is
This meter reading system
you
that's
want to
in
do it
this,
sooner is my question.
this meter reading system that's in this capital is not what we were asking for in ARPA. And with the ARPA money, we were talking about going out and changing every meter in the town of Williston that's not radio read at this time. This, that's in this capital, is just to keep the program that we use to read meters up to snuff, the computer side of it. The actual reading, and if somebody wanted to give us the money to go change all those others over to a radio read, nobody would argue about it, and talk about being able to find out your water loss. That would be a way we could really get down to in the weeds with finding water loss. Because CWD sends water into the town. We know every day what they're sending into town. We read meters once a quarter. So, but if we got to a point where we could read every meter one day, the same day that water came in, we would know.
Do you remember how much that was, that request?
Probably $500,000.
How much?
$500,000. We're about a third of the way there. We don't put anything in now except radio read meters. So we're about a third of the way there with the meters that we have. So anytime we have to replace an older one, it's radio read. Anytime a new one goes in, it's radio read, but we still have enough out there. So we're about 2/3 of our 3,000 customers. So it's not cheap.
Well, if you wanted to give, I don't think we need to change it in the budget, because I checked with Eric, and he said if we wanted to change the capital, if we wanted to take money out of the fund balance to do a capital project, we could do that outside of the budget. It wouldn't affect rates, so you could do it outside the budget. But that was one that I hated that we couldn't do, because I think it will save us. I mean, the differential in that 30 million gallons is almost $100,000 a year that
It is.
it just lost water. And,
But keep in mind, we're always gonna have 10% loss.
okay, well then,
I mean, regardless of how good we get, they'll tell you, we were down to 10% one year, and the state was like, there's no way, you can't be at 10%. So I showed them the numbers, but you really start to get concerned at about 15%. Because there's just no way you're not gonna have water loss. Once again, fire flows. I'm not throwing the fire department under the bus, but yesterday, we found out they were doing training, and we didn't know it, and CWD didn't know it. We found out when we got a phone call that said, you got a water problem. So, there's those kind of things that are going on.
Yeah.
It doesn't take long when you're training to put a lot of water out.
yeah.
So once again, I'm not trying to throw them under the bus, that's just an example. The leak I just told you about with,
Yeah.
at the business, there's those kind of, water break, one water break. The one on 2A last year in that main line, actually there were two of them, after they water hammered us, was a lot of water loss. So,
Well, I was more on the meters, that I really liked the idea of doing it. I thought it'd make it more efficient and, be great. And again, we can wait for the auditors, but we have a 70% fund balance against the operating account, and that's probably healthy. I don't know that we could afford to take $500,000 out, but, I'd be open to kind of pushing that number up in the future to see if we could get those meters.
well, I'm just throwing you a number too. It could be less than that. I don't think it'd be any more than that.
Yeah,
It's not a cheap proposition. It's, you gotta get, meters are, what, $200 a meter, plus the other stuff that goes along with them, it starts to add up pretty quick, and then the
It
work
was
to
something
do
to
it.
think about, I didn't want you to think I didn't read your, I didn't want you to think I didn't look at your budget.
Oh, no,
Deep
it's fine.
thoughts.
I appreciate it. And we'll take the money, we'll do it.
There's
already got the money.
potential as we work through the ARPA lists and the projects, we could have variances where projects come in under budget. So we have some that wasn't allocated by the board to date as well. So I anticipate there'll be another review, maybe when we start to do the general fund for next year, and keeping our utilities in mind as well, as you sweep through those remaining ARPA funds to be in mind of some of these additional utility projects.
I mean, I'm cognizant of that, to say that without being, but this fund balance can only be used on water.
Right.
And this is a water project.
Yeah.
So the ARPA money could be used on a radio tower.
Yeah.
So I was looking at what reasonable things you could use this money for that would be beneficial to the town, and that was just a big gigantic one,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I was thinking there could be a way where you use some fund balance and then you use a little bit of ARPA to get it over the top or something too, to fund some funds together.
If you did do that, you would start with the larger users probably.
I'm sorry?
If you did go and do a replacement of water meters, what would you do? Start with like the larger users?
No, if we're talking about doing a wholesale replacement, we would do everybody. That's why I say it'd be $500,000. We'd do an RFP to get, to get a company on board to do that, and then we would be everybody.
Except for the third, you said it's already kind of, didn't you?
Well,
think-
except for about a third, yes, so.
I was just thinking if you just did 20% a year, 25% a year.
Well, yeah, I mean, we can break anything up anyway, Mike, for sure. I mean, in a sense, we're doing it now. Like I said, anything new is radio read. Anything that needs a replacement is radio read. We don't put in anything that's not radio read at this point. So we don't replace that many meters a year out of ones that are already out there existing. But with the new lead laws, as soon as we take an older meter out of the system, even if it's in perfectly fine shape, we can't put it back in. Even if somebody calls and says, I need my meter removed, my plumber needs it out of the way or whatever, once we take it out, they bought a new meter. That meter cannot go back in if it's of the older style. So, you know, they're getting replaced as we go along, but we still have quite a few out there that need to be.
And our staff is, I mean, if you hire someone to do it, you'd probably do it all at once. So you
Well, that
keep
would be the
bringing
only way
a
to-
vendor back every year, so.
Right.
And, you know, the other thing to keep in mind, since we're talking about it, is radio read frees up staff. Right now, we got 4 people that drive around 3-4 times a year to go read meters. Some of them, they have to walk up to the houses still. With a radio read, you pull into a neighborhood, and you hit the button, and and you drive to the next one. And actually, if we really want to look at it, we can do radio read that all comes right to Kim. It's just a matter of getting the antennas out there. So, I mean, we could tell you the day you call up and ask, we could tell you how much water you used. And that's how robust the system could be.
All right, got them all fired up.
Yeah.
Jean's new passion project.
Don't you like it when I want to spend money? I don't want to spend money.
I like it.
Saving money.
So,
Yeah.
are there other questions for Bruce? Comments? If not, a motion is proposed.
Let somebody else read all the numbers this time.
I'll move to approve the water fund operating budget for the fiscal year 2026 in the amount of $1,703,525 and capital program for fiscal years 2026 through 2031 as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
There are no nays, the ayes have it, the motion carries. Next, sewer fund.
So the sewer fund, just from the letter of transmittal, once again, it's a 3.75% increase to us from the Tri-Town plant. So we were paying $4.171 per 1,000 gallons. It's going up to 4.327 per 1,000 gallons. The retail rate that we have for 25 is $9.47. In this budget, we're not suggesting an increase at all in the retail rate. Upgrades to pump stations, and we just talked about this the other day, Eric and I, a little bit about, we were trying to do one every other year, 10 pump stations, get around 20-year life. COVID slowed that down a little bit, including the unexpected doubling in price to have a pump station done. So we're trying to get that back on track. And the industrial force main, which is already out being designed and everything, we had a number of 600 and some odd thousand. The newest updated estimate for that project is 700,000. So there is an increase in the capital in that line that I'll talk about. As far as the operating budget, once again, not any big changes. As far as increases are concerned, I go through and highlight things, I don't see very much highlighted. So anyway,
Me either.
I like this where it says purchased water. I probably shouldn't say purchased water. Oh, wait a minute, I'm looking at the water budget. No wonder it says purchased water. Still the same thing, though. There really aren't any huge increases. Salary line's up a little bit. What I talked about as far as the keeping the rate the same, that's not going to change. I know what it was, that the Yeah, the letter transmittal is all on one page, so, anyway.
Yeah.
Pump repair and maintenance, we went up 10,000, went up $10,000 in that. And once again, that's just due to increases in what things are costing us anymore. You'll see actually that our treatment cost and our user rate, what's happening is our flows, the way we used to get our flows all the time was from a flume at River Cove, and it basically had a manual reader to it. We have changed that to now it's a radar read type system, and our flows seem to have calibrated out to, they're actually a little lower than we thought they were. So I believe this year, since we have the flows, we've done this so late that we have the flows all the way through May, that even if I take the highest month from last year, add it to those flows and come out, I think we're gonna still be $100,000 in the good when we're all said and done. So we've tried to make up for that a little bit in this budget. We'll know how, I mean, quite honestly, we'll know how good it is next year. But that's what we were looking at, rather than just saying, okay, we're putting this much on, this is gonna, I tried doing something a little bit different to see if we can get these numbers more in check, so that we don't keep having this surplus at the end of every year. Now, if June is as wet as May, well, actually, I took May. May was our highest month for flows, so, and put that in there. But, you know, so it would have to be a really devastating June for that number to be off. We're gonna be $80,000 to $100,000 in the good in what we pay for treatment. Then, unless there's any questions, we can do capital.
Questions?
Just on capital.
Okay, capital, once again, the vehicle replacement fund increased that a little bit. Pump station upgrades, actually added $50,000 in that line, and that was what I was just talking about a little bit ago, to get it back to where we can do a pump station every other year. Excuse me. Then the other biggest one was a sewer infrastructure. Yeah, and that's where the, actually, that's where the force main for Industrial Ave, where I said we had a $600 and some odd thousand estimate. Now it's $700,000. With the money we already have in capital, we need to add $161,000 the next 2 years to be able to do that project in FY27, which is what it's slated for. Those are the next two big ones in the sewer system. The Industrial Ave force main replacement, and then the third pump at River Cove. And then we got a whole different list we'll talk to you about later on. So,
Yeah, that's the, our TIF project analysis for sewer infrastructure. We're at 90% complete the report. We're doing some staff work with our engineer and our TIF consultant on it, and a lot of good analysis we were looking at this week. So once that's set, we'll have on the select board's agenda to walk the board through that and be thinking about some future capital needs that are involved in that as well for TIF district and also overall with the system with capital planning.
so we had a study done in 2017 looking at our sewer infrastructure. Was going to get it done again in 2027. Might still have to do a little bit of it, but a lot of it has been done through the TIF district study that's being done.
Well, that's where I kind of went with a $4 million fund balance. That seems like we should have a better plan for what to do with that. My first thought was the River Cove one. It's like, why are we asking for ARPA money if we have $4 million of fund balance we could just do it out of fund balance. But then I was thinking about in the town plan, talking about a lot of stuff in Taft's Corners for managing sewer, right? I think I remember. Anyways, there are things in there that were gonna cost money, and so I would like to have, before we do this again next year, have some idea what we're saving $4 million for.
Well, the preliminary, maybe Eric doesn't want me to say this, but the preliminary TIF is looking at probably $8 to $10 million just in sewer infrastructure. So, those are pretty broad numbers right now. It needs to be refined, but we know we're looking at least 8. And that's just construction costs, so maybe Eric didn't want me to give that number out right now.
In development and, as part of our future planning for potential TIF district and things that may not be TIF eligible, and also recognize that we have the net position here and what's the good comfort range for the board in that. And we learned there's also might be some opportunities for some state funding to help with design of some of these systems yesterday, we should take a good look at. Our plan is to bring this to the board to kind of identify those items and think about our different possible funding sources, and for the board have a discussion about what recipe you want to look at for wastewater infrastructure, because it's the critical element here for housing for the community for the future, and especially our Taft Corners development.
I've already asked Jason to give me an estimate on 3 of those items for the planning grant. So we'll see.
Yeah.
And some of the other infrastructure or pump upgrades and things like that, it's like having the money is one thing, and having the ability to do more than one project at a time or one project every 2 years, that's something, you guys have to work out. But it seems like things just get more expensive the longer you push them out. So if we have the money and it makes sense to replace something and we have the capacity to manage that, why are we waiting? But I don't know the answer to those other 3 questions, so I will trust you all to manage that. But it is a awfully big fund balance to have no plan for.
Well, I'll tell you right now, it's not a management problem. We can manage the project,
Yeah,
but it's a matter of, like, even with the pump stations, 20-year life cycle, every 2 years is the right cycle to do that. If we do 4 of them in 1 year, in 20 years, we gotta look to do 4 of them again, so,
Yeah.
that's part of that.
yeah. I didn't mean to just say that you couldn't do the job. I just
Yeah,
like-
yeah. No, it's okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm gonna, I don't have any problem with sitting here and telling you that your public works department's gonna have to get larger. We've been, I haven't talked with Eric too much about all that, but he knows it too.
No, I know. And
So,
our infrastructure's
it's
getting
just-
bigger, our town's getting bigger.
right, it is what it is, so.
I think for the board, you'll have a lot of in-depth sewer infrastructure conversations coming up, so these are all really good things to be thinking about and talking about.
Greta's so excited.
I know. Can't wait.
It has nothing to do with budget, but I think about utilities, a lot of it is buried underground today, correct? Power, and, I don't know, cable, if that'll still be undergrounds in a few years, water and sewer. There must be different depths that you bury everything, like the water.
Supposed to be.
But I mean,
We do, Mike. No. Water, top of water line is always 5.5 feet, supposed to be. There's water lines out there that are shallower than that. There's water lines out there that are deeper than that. Sewer, you want to at least, have it 4 feet anyway, because sewer is not typically going to freeze anyway. But we've got sewer lines that are anywhere from 4 feet deep to 30 feet deep. It's not our own utilities that are in the way. It's gas, it's Comcast, it's Consolidated, it's, Fiber One, it's all them that come in, and even when we give them permits and we watch them and we tell them where to go or whatever, we still go out. Everybody wants to be, the way it's supposed to be is Town of Williston water on one side of the road, sewer down the middle of the road, and everybody else on the other side of the road. Well, it's getting so crowded now that it's hard to make everybody be on one side of the road. And then you don't want them under your road, because then you gotta rip your road up if something happens. Most of those utilities go in at 3 feet deep, including gas. So, some of them go in duct banks. What's a duct bank? 5 or 6 pipes, concrete all around them. There's a lot of stuff out there. We dig safe things, and everything's marked out, and you start digging, and you still dig something up because it wasn't marked right. So, yeah, no, it's getting very crowded. The state wanted to Vermont Gas on Industrial Ave had to move their water line, or their gas line as part of the project. Well, their first plan to me was to take it and put it underneath our road and then go back out of the road. And that was like, I don't think so. So they figured it out and they moved it to the other side, way out. I'm assuming they must have gotten easements from somewhere else, but we weren't gonna let Vermont Gas go parallel underneath our road. Of course, you gotta go perpendicular, because they gotta get across the road, but it's getting very crowded. And the right place is for it to be, the power even to be underground. The most dangerous thing underground is power. You break a gas line, you hear, gas spurts up, and you get everybody out of the way, and they come and shut it off. You dig into a power line, that's a whole different ballgame. So, luckily, we don't do that. We have broke gas lines, unfortunately.
Whenever I see, like, I just think about that. I think about that sometimes, how much is underneath the ground, we don't realize.
Well, what a lot happens now is GMP takes all their own easements anyway. They don't want to be in our right of way because they know we can come along and say, we need it, you got to move. So they get their own to start with, so we can't come along and say, you got to move. Any utility can go into a public right of way. They have the right to do that, but they do that at our convenience, not at theirs. So if they put something in the ground and we need to be there, we have the right to say, you got to move it. That's why we don't give easements to utility companies. And that's a public law. We have no control. They are allowed to go within our right of way, but they don't get to control where they go, and they don't own it by any means.
Are there any other questions?
Not from me.
Okay. If not, any motion would be in order.
I move to approve the sewer fund operating budget for fiscal year 2026 in the amount of $2,428,000 and capital program for fiscal year 2026 through 2031 as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Got
Any
in there
discussion on the
early.
motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
There are no noes, the ayes have it. Okay. That would bring us up to
Can
fund
I
ba-
just say that was a great job, two more others really solid budgets, and I appreciate the fiscal conservative approach.
Yeah, no, I'm lucky. I've got a great staff. I actually got a comment today from a consultant. One of my staff was out in the field working with them and called me up just to say, what a good job she did. And wasn't Lisa, although Lisa does a good job. But, it was nice to hear that a consultant saying, we really enjoy working with, it was Christine, we really enjoy working with her, she does a good job, blah, blah, blah. So, that's a good thing.
Absolutely. Do you do your own numbers, or does Shirley do them for you, or is it combo, or somebody else?
What's that?
Who does your numbers for you?
In his budgets?
Yeah.
Oh, they were all me this time, except Stormwater. Stormwater was Lisa.
Okay.
But, well, no, Shirley, they know that. Shirley does 3/4 of it. I mean, if anyone's,
sidewalk plow purchase.
So our 2016, it's called a trackless sidewalk plow. That's the manufacturer. It's due for replacement this coming fiscal year. It's in the approved capital budget. Department put it out to bid. We received one bid for $225,500, following some credit for trading in our current machine. We've got just under $200,000 in the capital savings account, so we're under with that bid. There's just over $28,000 gap in funding. To make up that gap, we're asking the select board if you would consider allocating some unassigned fund balance to make up the difference. And I rounded it up in the suggested motion of $30,000. Anything else you have, Bruce, to add?
Eric or Bruce?
no, I don't have anything to add. I mean, it's, the reason we only got one bid is there were 3 suppliers in the state of Vermont. Now there's none. the one we got the bid for is out of Lancaster, New Hampshire. And it's actually the best bid we could have got because they at least have an on-road technician that'll come to you for service and for warranty kind of stuff. But after the warranty, they'll come to you for service too. The machine we have right now, we have to run it down to Concord, New Hampshire if we want any work done to it. They won't come here. So we're a little stuck in that there's just not a lot in Vermont. This machine, the machine we have now is a trackless. The machine that we got the bid on is a holder. If you want to see what a holder looks like, you can go down Little Wake Garage. There's a picture from the Observer with Jeff in it in a snowstorm. Before we got to trackless, we had a holder. So we're just going back to a holder. Both perfectly fine machines, so it's what we need.
Questions?
We need it, and, you know, we need it. Bottom line.
Any other questions or comments? There is a proposed motion.
I move to assign up to $30,000 of the unassigned general fund balance to the capital fund for the purpose of purchasing a replacement sidewalk plow in fiscal year 2026.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No nays, the ayes have it.
You're not doing the rates tonight, Eric?
No, they'll be with the rate sheet for next meeting with all the other ones.
Next meeting?
Yep.
Okay, gotta be by July 1st.
Yeah. So we got it June 17th.
Okay, good. All right,
For fun, can I just point out that despite all of my questions, we're ahead of schedule on the agenda?
Yeah.
great, thank you all.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you,
Move ahead
Bruce.
to volunteer.
Come back with that plan for the meter readers.
Thanks, Bruce. I just texted Matt, and the planning commission will be over briefly, I'm sure.
Okay.
If you jump somewhere else in the agenda, if you'd like.
Was there a hearing, was there a draft of a hearing notice that was,
No hearing tonight for that.
We don't have to warn a hearing tonight, we're just saying we want to do it.
You can consider a motion to warn the public hearings, but we don't actually have the warning set until you make that motion
okay,
for this discussion. This is your formal transmittal of the town plan from the planning commission to decide if you want to progress the process to the hearing stage. It'll be your discretion if you want to do that this evening or not.
okay. All right.
Should we do volunteer reappointment?
Yeah, can we move on to volunteer reappointments?
So included in the agenda is the list of reappointments to consider for town boards and commissions for fiscal year 2026, as staff has reviewed with all those folks who wish for reappointment. Aaron's prepared this list. We do this in a list format for the board to consider, and there's a suggested motion.
Any questions or comments? If not, there is a proposed motion.
I move to adopt the reappointment list dated June 3rd, 2025.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
There are no nays, the ayes have it.
If Bruce was still here, I'd give him a hard time. I really want to be the tree warden.
Yeah,
But that's hard work right now, actually. Trees, so.
We get rid of things like the wear of coal and the fence viewer a few years ago.
yeah, that makes me
Way
sad.
of-
Charter.
I was actually elected as the town agent for Richmond. Yeah, before they got rid of that. I thought it was like a James Bond kind of thing. Receive legal papers. I was like, where's my fancy car? But
It
it
was
didn't
a
work.
secret agent.
Yeah, that's right. Important word. Yeah.
If you are looking for another gig, health officer.
Health officer,
Still,
thank you.
still open.
Ted, you are the deputy here.
Yes, I am.
Agent 99.
I remember that. Can we do some of the manager's
Yep.
report?
So we've got the quarter 3 quarterly report included. Thanks for Aaron and all our department heads for getting that together. Pleased to share our fire recruit graduation took place last week. 3 new probationary firefighters were sworn in on May 26th. And congratulations to Nicholas Wood, Jack Whalen, and Jack Hogan. And a big thanks goes to our department staff who served as instructors for the training academy. Our captain position has been vacant for a number of months, and that serves as our training position. So really applaud the department for their creativity and our staff for stepping up to help make sure our new staff members were well-trained, and they did an excellent job, I know, at the Fire Academy at the end of the live fire training component of that. So we were able to recognize them and swear them in recently, and a number of their families and loved ones were there as well. They toured the stations. A really nice event the department puts on, and it's really great to have them join our staff. Then what may be the last legislative update, but we'll see what happens the next couple of weeks, as they have not adjourned yet. The local option tax revenue, this is essentially landing at a 75-25 split, move from the current 70-30. This is the first change in this since 2005, so 20 years. My initial estimate is this is going to yield us a few extra $100,000 in revenue for FY26. I believe it's going to be effective July 1st. I've got to see the final signed bill. I don't know if it's been signed by the governor yet, if that one's moved completely along. But we'll do some financial work to kind of hone in on that projection, and we'll probably get a little better sense of that after quarter one of FY26. So I know this year we're aggressive with how we increase the local option tax revenue. We're hoping we'll hit that target. And then we were pretty conservative with not a very big increase in FY26. So I'm thinking with this change, we'll at least meet that target we've budgeted for FY26, and we can see how it shakes out through the year if we have some added revenue there for some added board discussions with that source, and then we can plan accordingly for FY27 moving forward. And with the second half of the biennium next year, this conversation will continue. After chatting with our colleagues at VLCT, legislatures didn't really get into the pilot fund surplus, which is over $10 million. Some of that was assigned for flood relief for municipalities, which is good use for it. But we've been advocating for a return of that surplus to municipalities that paid it in. There's some differences of opinion, and I think that will get picked up more moving forward, but that surplus is projected to continue to grow because more towns are adding the local option tax revenue, continuing to grow that surplus. My other hat I wear as president of the Vermont Municipal Management Association right now. We're starting to take more of an active advocacy role too for the professional managers and administrators to represent interests or governance in towns they serve. So trying to continue to advance that dialogue, and that'll likely be next legislative session. And then a lot of discussion here the last couple of weeks with the housing bill, and there was some initial language about a sunsetting of the TIF program. This is tied into the CHIP program, which is kind of a project-based mini TIF. A lot of discussion and work on that with conference committee, and thankfully the TIF sunset was removed from that. It was pushed to 28, or 25, 26, 28, 31, 35, and it got struck in the end. That was for us looking to apply still, we wanted to keep pushing that horizon with how we advocated for it, but not having any sunset date is good. We want to, if the town decides to move forward with that and it's approved by the state, we want to really demonstrate the viability of that program to the development community, especially moving forward. And then the CHIP program was approved too, and this, not as much for Williston as we're looking for the larger TIF district component, but this is a really great tool for smaller communities to utilize. It utilizes tax increment for kind of project base. Smaller, you have a downtown, lot to redevelop, it needs some new sewer main to help out that site to be redeveloped for maybe like a 15-unit apartment building. This can really utilize that tool on that scale statewide, and really looking for the statewide housing goals. Tools like this are critical for municipalities. Vermont being a Dillon's Rule state, all the authority for municipality has to be granted through the legislature. Municipality couldn't have a home rule to implement these things on its own. So those are good wins for local government in the legislature. And last thing, the housing targets comment letter. Thanks to Gene and Matt worked to finalize that, and was sent to the RPC I think the end of last week or so.
Thank you, Gene, for doing that. Looked great. And Matt as well.
Yes, I think I had one edit on his.
I'll try someone else next door in case they.
Get a sentence ending in a preposition. I could not put up with that. I think it will be interesting as the local option tax revenue, the split, and hopefully this hopefully they'll lean in a little bit more on that split, but it'll be interesting to at least have some discussions around where, if there's other ways to take advantage of that other than just putting it in the general fund. I mean, it just strikes me that I think Colchester like paid for their community's building with their 1% sales tax, because they didn't just add it. I'm not just add it, like, but you know, they saved until they could do something with it. And if it's a couple $100,000, it's not gonna make that big a difference to us, but it would be kind of an interesting discussion to have rather than just, you know, a 0.5% reduction on the tax rate or something.
Yeah, and I know communities like Colchester have, since they adopted their local option tax, they use it solely for capital projects,
Right.
and not had it offset any of the general fund revenue.
Right.
Probably Williston's had this model since the town adopted it in the early 2000s, and we still have that deficit operating fund budgeting where we're looking for the fund balance to kick in a portion of it. Part of that over time was how the local option tax played into that, and we got more revenue than in local option tax than was required, so that just kind of canceled out using the fund balance year to year, and we've tried to right-size that the last couple of years, and trying to be aware of that budget structure right now too with.
Yeah, and historically, we put the 1% sales tax in for the reason it was in there, which was because we got hammered on the education tax, and this was a way to keep the taxpayers, you know, more even. If that, you can make different decisions if taxes have already absorbed that, and now you added 1%. So, I'm not saying we should have been there. It's just like now that we have another opportunity to think about it, it might, even if it's just putting it in the capital.
Yeah, I've had those exact same thoughts
Yeah.
where we have some more revenue. We always need revenue in capital. That's anywhere we could always put new revenue, it's capital. There will be no shortage of capital projects for us to do. Yeah.
So let's circle back to the town plan transmittal from the Planning Commission. Good evening, Matt.
Good evening. Sorry I was a little tardy coming over. I had 8:12 on my,
I know, we were ahead
Select
of
board.
schedule,
Way ahead.
and it
That's
was a
I
budget.
texted Emily too in case she was.
I'm not sure how you got ahead of schedule with Stormwater on the docket ahead of me, but
Jean asked a lot of her questions before the meeting.
I asked Shirley so that people would give me a hard time if I had a question.
oh, great. So what I have for you tonight, you actually already have on the desks in front of you. This is the transmittal version of the 2025 Williston Comprehensive Plan draft. This was approved by the Planning Commission to be sent along to the Select Board at their last meeting on May 20th. And it reflects edits that were made right up to the point of that hearing, many of which were in response to comments provided by Select Board members or in the meetings that we had that were preliminary to this. So thank you for that participation. You have a cover memo that we sent along with this, just describing where we're at in the process and also enumerating some of the changes. So I'll just review that really quickly. Again, this is the part of the process we're in. The Planning Commission has held its required public hearing. In order for a town plan to be adopted under statute, Williston needs to hold 2 Select Board public hearings because we're a big enough town that we have to hold 2. We have tentatively penciled those in for July 15th and August 19th, and I'll explain those dates in a little bit. The recommendation from staff would be that the Select Board go ahead and direct staff to warn those hearings so we can get them scheduled, and then I'll talk a little bit about what the process looks like from there. But what we've given you is the complete transmittal draft of the comprehensive plan. This has all of the plan text in it, all of the front matter, all of the maps, all of the appendices, particularly those that will be adopted as a component of the plan. So we talk about the Taft Corners Vision Plan, the Energy Plan, et cetera, are essentially also the town plan. In other words, they're so integral to it that they come with it. And then the memo contains the timeline where we talk about July 15th and August 19th as the prospective hearing dates for the Select Board. And the nice thing about that schedule is it gives us time between the meetings so that as the board is, I'm sure, bringing this binder home, keeping it on the kitchen table, reading a chapter every night, gathering with friends and neighbors to go over it, and coming up with any changes you want to make, if those can be communicated to staff over the next month or so, we can actually get them into a red line draft that we can talk about when you open up your hearing on July 15th. Also, anything that comes up at that hearing, somebody from the public comes and says, I think you should change this, and the board agrees. We then have time to integrate those changes into a red line draft and warn it for that second hearing on August 19th, staying on schedule. And we even have time to run those changes back by the Planning Commission and give them their opportunity to comment on it at the beginning of August, which is what the state law requires, that if you make substantive changes, the Planning Commission gets a chance to look at them and give you any advice they want to give on it. So that's why the schedule has those two public hearings a little over a month apart. It gives us the breathing room to continue to make edits. So lastly, I mentioned that there is a list of what those changes were. This is the same list we showed the Planning Commission on May 20th and just said, you know, there's the one you warned back in mid-April. These are the changes that we've drafted up in response to what we've heard from the Select Board. The Planning Commission was fine with all of those changes. So you don't see them as red lines in your binders because they're now part of the draft, but we wanted to call them out for you in the memo. So the main purpose of tonight's hearing, tonight's informational meeting is for me to answer any questions you have about the draft that you've got now, any questions you have about the process, and hopefully give you the confidence you need to move it on to that July 15th and August 19th hearing date. And I'm happy to dive in anywhere you'd like.
Questions?
Can you just clarify one thing you said about these other appendixes?
Mm-hmm.
Like the energy plan, technically, when we approve the town plan, are we also approving the energy plan, or?
You are.
Okay.
And so in this case, there's been a few updates to the energy plan. They're primarily adopting the latest and greatest information of that plan. So there's been some remapping that we wanted to pick up in there. Okay. And a little bit of clarification on the wording of some of the goals that are contained within the energy plan that the Energy Committee worked on.
I have to think of that a little bit. You guys have heard enough about me about this plan. Wait for someone else to speak up.
I just want to say, I think they've done an amazing job, and I'm looking forward to public input now.
Yeah, you know, we've also, I didn't mention this about the memo, but as we had a final draft that we could start showing around, we did a couple of outreach events. We did an informational session at the library. We were under the tent for Green Up Day. We went to Rotary. We went to a senior community meal at the rec zone and heard a lot about the sidewalks in the village, more than we'd heard anywhere else, and also met with the library trustees. So we have been taking that in all along. We're continuing to publicize the existence of the plan and encourage people to pick it up and read it and give us feedback. It's gotten a little thin. I don't know, some folks might have gotten kind of worn out from all of the other public engagement we did at this point, but I think if they have, it speaks to just how much we've put into it already. That said, things can come up. The other engagement effort we have around this is we are going to be opening up a photo contest. And by that, I mean, we're asking people to give us more photographs of Williston that we can put into the final version of this plan. And if you give us photographs, we're going to enter you into a drawing for some kind of gift card to a local business. So that's coming.
You should use that for the town website, too.
We'll share whatever photos we get. But we did spiff up the photographs a little bit more in this draft, but there's still some more things we'd like to do with that and just add more visuals, just to make it a nicer document. But that'll be rolling out soon, so you can encourage people to send photos. And we're using one or another form of survey software, so literally someone can take a picture with their phone and shoot it right off to us, so we'll be doing that.
Ted's pretty bummed, he doesn't get his picture in there twice.
No, no.
Well, not yet.
Yeah, well,
Well, that's true.
And so Ted has the opportunity to submit a lot of photos now, so.
we'll see.
I just, this is not something, I mean, it's a relatively minor detail, but I think really important to note is that, in my opinion, this is probably just as user-friendly as a town plan can get. And I hope that folks in town between now and the public hearings really take the opportunity to read this. It is very user-friendly. It's dense, but it naturally, needs to be. But down to the details of the font, even the font. We talked about that last meeting. The font is a very readable font for this much material, and I really just appreciate that it is, again, as accessible as I imagine a town plan can be. So, great job on that as well.
Thank you. And, certainly one of the things post-adoption we've talked about is how to get it out on the website in a way that's interlinked and interactive, and also that we want to take that implementation table at the end and really turn it into a dashboard and show people, at least quarterly kind of update, what's our progress on all these actions that we said we were going to try to undertake, so that we can continue to inform people about, where we're at. So we designed it with that in mind. It's a lot of pages because it's a readable font with a lot of white space around it, with the top 3 facts and opinions, et cetera, in boxes. So I was working with Hannah in our office, and I said, okay, it's time to start doing some formatting, so let's make sure those boxes don't break across a page. And she's like, well, it's going to be more pages. And I said, I know. Just, it'll help people. They can flip through it. And I think we've struck a good balance there. So I do hope people, as much as anybody ever does, I hope people pick up the town plan and read it.
Actually, speaking of website, we found a way to put it like on the front of the web page, because I've tried to send people the link, because it's like, well, you got to go into this and then this and then this and this. Look here. Is it on front now, so it's easier to find?
I think once you've taken action to warn the hearing, then,
we'll
we
put
can
it there?
absolutely put it right on the front
Okay.
page.
Other questions for Matt? It's not the first time we've had this before us, so, nor will it be the last.
Well, I have in the back of my mind, I think the first time my predecessor brought a town plan in 2010, and Ken sort of had the whole thing, and I think Terry as chair said, okay, let's take this one chapter at a time. And I think Ken said, and I was at the select board every meeting until we had been through each chapter. So we've taken a little bit of a different approach here, but we've tried to be just as incremental and really give people time to turn it over. So I hope we've done that well.
Yep, I think so.
Great. And the binders look great. Thank you very much to my staff for all the punching and assembly and the fancy dividers and the trips to Staples and everything else. It means a lot to see it in this near finished form. Hang on to your binders. What we will do is, once there's an adopted version or significant updates, we will keep serving you paper copies. But I don't know, did we tuck in sticky notes? We'll make sticky notes available, et cetera. Please, mark it up. It's yours. And we'll provide clean chapters.
I remember the sticky notes from the form-based code binder. I really enjoyed that.
And Gene, this one has the appendices and the supplemental materials. That's different from the one they had Friday, so we can,
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
staff gave me a note on that
Okay.
today. So.
we want to make sure
I
you
was
get
gonna say, I
the,
get 2 copies, I'm so special.
So, I think the next thing to think about is warning a public hearing, which we have to do
Yeah.
if we want to adopt it. But is there any discussion or questions or comments about that.
So just how does this work? Because if we usually, so we're just saying we're going to warn public hearings?
Yeah, the staff will warn those hearings. You know, our dates we were looking at are July 15th and August
19th.
So it will be legally warned. July 15th comes, and if there's any substantive changes made from what's been transmitted by the Planning Commission, we'll just repost the warning for August 19th with the updated draft at that point.
Yeah.
How many days before a public hearing does the notice have to go out? Is it
15 days, I think, published in the newspaper.
I think these are 15, yeah.
Yeah, all right. The other thing-
Most public policy is one public hearing, but town plan gets double treatment. So
All right.
it's so important.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, the select board has to officially warn it with the date and time and everything though, so.
We haven't typically done that for public hearings. We've done for just directing staff to.
Yeah,
warn
okay,
the
that's true,
hearing,
yeah, all right.
But it's your preference. If you'd like to be that exact in your motion, you can certainly do that direction.
If it's not legally necessary, I don't think we should do it. That's good advice anytime about a lot of different things. So,
Ellie, you want to make this motion since you're so
Yeah.
close to this?
Yeah, I move to warn public hearings on the new town comprehensive plan.
is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
There are no nays. The motion carries. The public hearings will be scheduled.
Terrific, thank you.
Thank you. Send our
Thanks for the binder.
appreciation to everybody back over at Planning Commission.
Absolutely. Will.
So that does bring us back to manager's report, if there's anything left on it.
Nope.
Other than that, other business?
One catering permit I ran downstairs to grab. It's a wedding at Isham Family Farm, August 30th, by 802 Cocktails.
Hey,
Still not yours?
I have to recuse myself.
Oh, this is the
is.
one.
This is the one.
finally.
This is it. All right. Fingers crossed it's the one.
It's been 100 persons attendance, wedding reception.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions?
Yes.
Two abstentions. The motion carries.
Days are March.
Permit is issued.
For the record, that's my daughter's wedding, so. probably should-
Congratulations.
Thank you, very excited. Well, congratulate me on the September 1st.
Is there any other business?
Nope.
Okay. Final thoughts about items from this meeting. Are there any? If not, then there is an anticipated executive session.
I'll move to find that premature public knowledge regarding a labor relations agreement with employees would clearly place this town at a substantial disadvantage, and further move that we enter executive session to discuss a labor relations agreement with employees under Title I, Sections 313A1B, and invite Town Manager Eric Wells to join.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
There are no nays. We are in executive session. We will not be re-entering public session after this, so for those in the viewing audience, that will conclude the meeting, because we're not coming back into public session. So,